This conference will now be recorded.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everybody. This is the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors meeting. We are at the courthouse in Osage. The meeting is available online with GoToMeeting also. We have an agenda in front of us. Has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda or if there are any corrections needed? If not, I'll accept the motion to accept the agenda.
Make a motion for the agenda.
Henderson makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Meyer seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approve the minutes of the January 24th meeting. We had time to look the minutes over. Good to go with that. I'll accept the motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion to approve the January 24th meeting minutes.
Harper makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Brian seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Roll call, Todd.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Sydney.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
County Attorney General discussion. Morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't have a lot today. I know the one thing, I was just talking to Sheriff a little bit, one thing's on the agenda is the Riceville law enforcement. Depending on what decision is made, I didn't draft anything up ahead of time because there were a couple of question marks where I thought, well, I don't know how this will play or that'll play. So depending on what happens, I can do a draft of it and like quickly split and have it, done, by lunch or whenever. So we'll just see how that plays out. The only other thing I'll mention is, I don't know if you've seen come through, there'll be some deposition costs coming through on that first degree murder trial we got pending. I don't know that any of the bills have been coming through yet. I don't recall seeing any unless we've done deposition, but I don't recall seeing any of the bills. But it could be that they went to Becky and maybe she's submitting them. So I don't know, but I just wanted to let you know if you see those kind of things coming through and you're thinking this is more than what we're usually seeing, that's what we're looking at. It's going to be more of those depositions occurring through the month of February. So you'll probably see more of it. Try not to take advantage of it. And to be perfectly honest, most of the time in these criminal cases, it's generally not the prosecution team that's taking any depositions. Criminal rules of criminal procedure oftentimes restrict what a prosecutor can do as far as that anyway. It's usually the defense wanting to take the deposition. We're just there. So try and control the cost as much as we can, but in a case like this, the defense attorney is going to probably depose everyone, right? I mean, because they got a job to do too, and the last they wanted somebody appealing a verdict and saying my defense attorney sucked. So that's about all I have specifically. I do have a lot of things, I've talked with you guys about frequently, and I got a little flow chart at my office to kind of keep track of what I'm doing. So if you have any specific questions.
Any questions for the attorney?
I had a couple just yesterday on, and I couldn't really answer them on the spot. Do we have a date for Kephart?
Kephart, that's been, not yet, it's been bumped out. It's a confusing, long mess of a story.
Yeah. And they were all okay with that, but I couldn't remember if the email had a date or anything. So no date.
And that's something I'd be happy to talk about. Rather talk about it not going on over.
No, I just.
You don't necessarily know who's all listening.
Date.
It is a convoluted mess. Let's just say that.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
That I don't really think is in my making. Of course, law, but sometimes you just get quirky thing in the law and the system, and the things just get bumped out. And as I've said before, a lot of times it's an attorney in the case. Your cases get kicked out or whatever, and you're just at the mercy of the system. So you try and get it on schedule again.
Yep.
All right. Thank you much. Sheriff update.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
The only thing that I'm gonna bring you this morning, I'd like your feedback on is, I had a employee separate employment, 27th of December, full-time in the jail. I need to replace that position. I have taken applications and I've got somebody in mind, but I need your guys' thoughts on doing that. Moving forward in regards to the budget and some of the things that have been talked about over the last couple of weeks. So thoughts on me replacing that person? I have 3 full-time in the jail trying to run a 24/7 operation, and that ain't enough. I have 2 part-time that are filling in, but part-time work for full-time jobs. If I lose one of those, and then I'll have shifts open, and state says I can't have shifts open. So I need your thoughts on if I should move forward replacing that person or not.
I would say yes.
So the budget that you submitted is, that was set up for replacing that person, what you submitted.
Yes.
Okay.
The existing budget, obviously, that person was budgeted for in the 23-24 budget, yes.
You can be here for the budget, it says budget discussion.
I am
I just
gonna
had
be
some thoughts on that, so.
Yep.
I think you're good to go.
Is one of your part-times gonna take the full-time? or-
That's my plan, unless she says she doesn't want it, but I don't anticipate that. Good, good applications. Unfortunately, only one had jail experience. So, yeah.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, you gotta keep your,
Okay,
you don't have a choice. yeah.
sounds good. That's all I have unless people here have questions for me and.
Will you be here for the Riceville conversation?
Yep,
Okay.
I'll be here the whole meeting.
That's good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Department head discussion. Anything from anybody or anybody online? Okay, hearing nothing. County engineer update.
Not much for you this morning. I do have the 2080 agreement we talked about a while back for our raise grant application. An explanation on that, the DOT has HDR as a consultant, on-call consultant for doing grant writing for the DOT. They've allowed the counties to piggyback onto that on-call services contract they have. This 2080 agreement, you got a 2080 agreement and then a resolution to pay for in support of the raise grant. So the agreement states that there's a lot of jargon in here, but we're trying to apply for the raise grant application through the federal bill. Clay County, Iowa is going to be the lead applicant, which means the federal government won't receive 9 different applications. They'll receive 1 application from Clay County for all of us. And all it says is that we're going to be on board with that, and we'll be paying 1/9 of the share of the cost once the DOT invoices the counties. And then individually, each county is responsible for their own project as far as design, construction, administration, and so forth. This is just a 2080 agreement, says we're gonna jump on board with that. We're gonna be responsible for some of the costs, whether we get the grant or not, we're still gonna be paying for those costs. And then the resolution is to put our project into this grant through the 2080 agreement.
What's the chances of it getting approved or? Don't know.
You tell me, but we kind of think we've got a good chance based on the projects we have selected. We're going for $24.75 million for the state of Iowa in 9 projects. So, yeah, it's hard to say what they're gonna give us, but I mean,
Right.
the answer is no chance if we don't apply.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So, I mean, it's money well spent for
Yes.
$1.4 million to fix a bridge.
Yes. And when do you have an answer on this? Is it,
Pardon me?
when do you find out? Is it
our applications are due the 28th of February, and then I don't know how long it's gonna take for them to evaluate stuff. Our project's in fiscal 26, so it's not a project that's gonna get done immediately, but that's a good thing. We've got time to iron through some things.
Okay.
I appreciate how organized you've been with it and the advocacy around it. You know, the sample letters.
Oh, that you've received.
Yeah.
We're trying to get letters of support from other public agencies as well as some private. So. That way, it's weird how we have to put this grand, pretty package together to get funding for a bridge when you go through these consultants and say, well, here's what the cover's gonna look like, and here's the colors we're gonna use. I'm like, really? Let's throw our ugly bridges on the cover and say, this is why we need the money instead of making them look pretty. But that's how they do applications. So that's where we're at. I'd have a different approach to it. But.
Any other questions for the engineer in regards to this? Accept the motion for approve the resolution for the 2080 cooperative agreement from somebody.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Brian makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Marco seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Roll call, Mark.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Sydney. Aye. Tim.
Aye.
Abby.
Aye.
So there are two places to sign, one on page 6 and one on page 8. Did you mark yours up? Or you?
I'll sign yours, yeah, because I can mark them on. That's the 2080 resolution. There you go. Okay. Anything else, Rich, or the board, any questions
I don't
for
have
Rich?
anything else that I can think of.
Anything from the board?
I have not yet gone to Wolves to see if they've got that chloride. I'll get to it.
Price is right.
Pardon?
Price is
Yeah,
right.
no kidding. Yep. Even if we have to, if it's a small amount, just take a truck over there and load right into the
No,
truck.
they're talking like 2,000 gallons they deliver.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get that figured out then. That's all I've got for you. I'll be gone tomorrow through Friday down in Des Moines for a workshop. But I'll be available by phone, emails, whatever. So,
Very good, thank you.
thank you.
Mitchell County Regional Hospital update.
All right, well, thanks for
Good
having
morning.
us today. Good morning. We just wanted to provide our annual update and let you know what's happening and show you our financials for the fiscal year 22. So we'll just go ahead and get started.
Okay.
So basically, and so just so you know, so Gina and I met yesterday for a little bit, and I'm going to be doing a calendar year update, but we're going to be doing a fiscal year update for the financials. So I just wanted to, because I try to update everybody, you know, on what's happened in 22. So there is a little bit of disparity there. So our key focus areas on our strategies are around consumer experience, obviously what our patients are saying, team engagement, you know, what our employees are saying, quality, ambulatory growth, and financial stewardship. Our primary growth strategies are around the growth in our clinic as well as our surgery area. So if you'll recall, we've had two different building projects. I think the first one started in maybe 17, where we renovated the front part of the building, and then the last project we did was around the operating room. And so what that has enabled us to do is, one, we have two operating suites now, as well as a procedure room. So we could actually have more than one surgeon doing a procedure at a time. And so we're looking at adding another CRNA, which is a certified registered nurse anesthetist in this fiscal year. So what we've been able to do then is Dr. Rattay has been doing total hips and total knees here. So that's helped. He's been doing a number of like hand surgery, shoulder things and things like that, but the hips and knees are still relatively new. And so we've been working on trying to get to the point where we can do two totals in a day on a Wednesday when he's here. So in addition to obviously, and Dr. Rattay has been coming here for years, but he hasn't really been doing a lot of procedures here locally. So we also brought on some new providers. Carrie Evans joined us and the ER in the clinic. Jamie Moog is an LISW that
So we already have, it's called ITP, Integrated Telepsych Services. So we have Jenna Visser as a counselor. It's all video, so it's all telemedicine. So Jamie was added on this year to supplement the days that Jenna is out. We also have brought on Dr. Gabe Lancaster. So he is currently an ED physician in the Des Moines metro area, but he has agreed to start working our Osage ER. We're not sure how frequently, but obviously, you know, he has babysitters when he comes here, and so it's kind of a nice gig. So we're welcome, Gabe. Robert Giles is a PA. He works with Dr. Rattay in Mason City, and so is Katie Wearer. And so what they're doing is, what we found is Dr. Rattay was getting, so when a patient comes in, he does an initial assessment, and then he would do like a post-op visit after they've had a procedure done. And what we kept finding is that his day was filled with post-op visits, and so he wasn't able to see a lot of new patients. So we monitor that backlog very closely. And so we have brought on these two individuals to help. So some of those individuals may be doing post-op visits, or they may be helping him in the OR. So that enables us to see more new patients, or Dr. Rattay to see more new patients. So then one of them is coming over on Thursdays to do post-op checks or discharge patients from the hospital. So those are, that way we didn't have to have Dr. Rattay necessarily being here 2 days, but we do have someone who works with him closely here and available. Let's see, Dr. Tarek El-Ajami is a new cardiologist. He started in October of this past year. Dr. Taylor Schwartz is an OBGYN. She started in November this past year. And we welcomed back Kelly Duran, who is a wound nurse. And she previously worked for us as a cardiac rehab nurse, but she had finished her wound certification, I'm gonna say 3 years ago. And so she'd been working for Mercy to get some experience. And so now she's our wound nurse locally. And then Johanna Smalley is also her provider overseer for that service. So as you guys know, we host medical students and residents, and that's one of the reasons that I think it's helped for us to recruit, is to have them coming through here. It gives us a chance to spend time with them. It gives them a chance to spend time with us to see if they would be a good fit. So over the last year, we hosted Dr. Thomas Biederman. He was a third-year resident at Broadlawns. Dr. Kyle Grover, he's at Iowa Lutheran residency right now. Dr. Tyler Folkerts, again, another Broadlawns resident. Jacob Stout was from DMU. So he's actually, we're waiting for his match day to see which residency program that he's going to match with. So, but he is someone that we are looking at down the road. He would be available in 2026. Megan Ellis was a DMU grad. We also hosted her. Austin Wisnowski from the University of Iowa. And then Deidre Rattay is a nurse practitioner who also rotated with us this past year with some of the nurse practitioners. And Kyle Grover is actually from the Hudson area. And so we are looking at Kyle Grover as a potential physician in 2025. So we would like to get him signed in 2023. So we'll see if we can make that happen this year. I don't know if you're familiar with the Shingo assessment. It's been most commonly used in, I would say, the manufacturing arena. But basically, a Shingo assessment is something that organizations will use to kind of look at their culture. And so we've been doing a Shingo assessment every single since 2015 to evaluate the progress of our culture. And so we completed the last assessment in April of 2022. And the best part about this past year is we actually had industry experts come in and do it. So in the past, we've had both, internal employees that may be serving on an alignment strategy, or we've had PECS people or process excellence people from outside of our area come in and evaluate our culture. And so, but this time we had local industry leaders come in, and so it was a good experience. So the Shingo looks at 4 different areas. It looks at cultural enablers, continuous improvement, enterprise alignment, how well are we aligned within the organization, and then what kind of results are we producing. And so our goal was a 3.1, and we scored a 3.18. So just so you know, so world class is 5, so it's on a 1 to 5 scale. And I think our first Shingo assessment was like a 1.97. So we've made incremental improvements over the years. Enterprise alignment was the area this year that we did seem to was our lowest score. And so what we're trying to do is try to figure out, and this probably never happens in any other industry, but do you ever get silos in your areas where you're like, if you work in the lab, I'm looking at Jim because you work in the lab. So you get a silo in the lab. So the lab people all work together, and then you've got registration people, and they all work together. But in our facilities, we all have to work interdepartmentally, and so we're working on that enterprise alignment. How do we get people to work really well together? And as we all know that sometimes budgets divide us. We'll say, well, that's not in my budget, or that's in your budget. And so, but ultimately, we're all part of the same organization, and we have to be able to figure out how we work together well, because the patients see when we don't work together well. Like, oh, I didn't get the sticker, and I'm in the radiology department, what happened in the front registration area. So, I mean, I think we're trying to work on that continuously. And so alignment is a key area for us to focus on this year. As it relates to engagement, so what are our employees saying? Press Ganey is the company that Mercy One has been using, and we had 100% provider or physicians, nurse practitioners, and PA participation. So 100% of them took the survey, and 99.4 colleague participation. We were missing one individual. On a scale of 1 to 5, our provider engagement score, again, our nurse practitioners, our PAs, and our physicians scored a 4.69 on a 5-point scale. Mitchell County scored 0.77 higher on the physician survey than all other Mercy One physician surveys, and 0.66 higher than the national average for physicians and providers. So we were very happy with that score. The colleague engagement score was 4.37 on a 5-point scale. And so Mitchell County scored 0.48 higher than all other Mercy One colleagues in the state, and 0.34 higher than the national average. So again, we were extremely pleased with our engagement scores. So as you guys are all aware, we've seen some inflation. Obviously, we're all post-pandemic. We're trying to figure out what our wages are doing. And so over the last year, we've given 4 retention appreciation bonuses. We were trying to see what was going to happen over the course of the next few years. Is the wage inflation going to stay? And so we felt like the bonuses were a way that we could do that, giving people supplemental monies until we figure out where the IJ salary surveys are going to come in. So every year we get what's called an IJ salary survey, and it comes from the Iowa Hospital Association. And basically all hospitals in the state submit their data, and then we get to rank. So they have urban hospitals, rural hospitals, critical access hospitals. They do it by your size, by your revenue, and so we can sort it. And so we look through to make sure that our people are where they should be based on their years of service. And so in July of 2022, we gave a 4.25% increase to employees. And in January, we gave nearly all employees an additional $1.25 pay increase. So we will continue to monitor that. Last year, we got a supplemental IHA survey, which allowed us to go back and look at certain positions and give adjustments to key positions that we felt were lower based on the state. And so we want to make sure we're competitive. So that is something that we're monitoring very closely. Riceville Clinic. So we submitted an emergency rural health grant under the American Rescue Plan on October 13th of 2021. And we didn't hear back. Well, actually we did hear back a couple times asking for additional data. So, but in August of 2022, we were notified that we were going to be awarded a $662,000 grant from the USDA. Our initial bid when we submitted was $1.2 million for a new clinic in Riceville. And we recently did an update once we knew we were going to get the grant funding. And as you guys will all expect, it went up significantly, both labor and materials. So our new bid is $1.9 million. So we are working with the architect to see where we can, see if we can get the pricing down. Obviously, we are going to also be doing some fundraising around that. And the land was actually donated by the Rundy family. And so we're very thankful to the Rundy family for the property donation, as well as they cleared the the spot, actually last week. She sent me a picture of it, so. But we're very thankful to the Rundy family for their support around this. We also put up a new building on 10th and Pine. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a nice size storage building. My husband would be very happy with that building. It's huge. And so just so you understand why we did it. So we currently have a Quonset hut and we store a number of things in that building. And it's always full, honestly. And so we needed the additional space. And so the other thing that we want to do is prepare that space across the street for future expansion. Not immediate expansion, but future expansion. So what we wanted to do is clear up land across the street, and that we wanted to push that building to the end, so that would give us more space. So a couple things just of note as to why we would want to do that. If we would put, let's just say, therapy department, let's say we wanted to put our physical therapy or our rehab services, as long as that building is located within a certain distance of our hospital campus, it could still be a hospital-based service. So we need to free up land that's close to the hospital in order to have a hospital-based service and, for potential expansion in the future. So that's why we wanted to do it. And so I just wanted to let you guys know kind of why we were taking the Quonset down. It's not down yet, but why we were doing that and putting up a larger building.
The new building is just storage, correct? It's not gonna be
Storage,
used.
yeah, we have records too that we keep in there, and they have to be double locked, so we'll have, what do we call those, like cages or like, a term for it, an extra space where there's locks so that, your records are secure, so, yeah. Awards and recognition, so I think Gina passed this out. This is the Chartist group, so November is National Rural Health Day. Every year. So the Chartist Center for Rural Health recognized Mitchell County Regional Health Center on 3 different performance leadership awards based on the results of the Chartist Hospital Index, which is that 97 index ranking on there. Mitchell County scored in the top quartile or the 75th percentile on all 3 outcome areas, which are around quality, they're around outcomes, and around the patient perspective. And Mitchell County was the only hospital in the state of Iowa to be awarded in all 3 categories. And the Chartist actually looks at all rural hospitals. So when I say all rural hospitals, not all rural hospitals are the same. You'll have rural critical access hospitals, which that is our designation, but there are also rural PPS hospitals. So like a hospital like Mason City or University of Iowa or Unity Point Des Moines, they're all prospective payment hospitals or PPS hospitals. So this is actually 1,800 rural PPS as well as critical access hospitals. We also had a significant retirement this year. Judy Brown was our chief nursing officer, and Beth Trees was our infection control nurse and quality nurse, and she replaced Judy as of July 1st. So we're definitely happy, but sad to see Judy go at the same time. Any questions about this? One of the things I always like to point out on the inpatient market share. So when we get these, we generally, maybe not every single time, but we generally try to touch base with Chartist to see why are we low in a particular area. One time we weren't measuring something that they were measuring. And so we obviously started measuring that. But on this inpatient market share, the reason it's going to be lower for us is that we don't necessarily keep all patients. So let's say, for example, you come in and you have, I'm a speak nurse here for a second, sorry. You have a gallstone that's in your common bile duct, and you need an ERCP or a procedure that will take that stone out of that common bile duct. You would have to go someplace else for that procedure because we don't offer that procedure. Likewise, if you were having a heart attack and we transferred you to Mason City or we transfer you to Rochester, we transfer a fair number of patients based on the acuity or how sick the patient actually is. And so that's why our inpatient market share is lower. So we generally will keep patients who have pneumonia, congestive heart failure, patients who have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or things that are, we'll just say bread and butter. Whereas things that are more, when patients need intensive care, we're likely going to transfer those patients elsewhere. So now, having said that, you probably have heard, you've seen this in the news. Obviously, 1,000 beds have closed in the state of Iowa in 2022. Not because there aren't beds to be had, but they don't have staff to take care of the patients in the beds. And so there is certainly a bed shortage. It is difficult at times to transfer patients. We've seen our transfer patterns change significantly. I would say, for the most part, we would send patients to Mason City or we'd send patients to Mayo. That's our normal pattern. But when we can't find beds, we transfer other places. And so we're transferring to University of Iowa. We're transferring to Waterloo. We're transferring to Des Moines. And what this does do is it's harder for our EMS team because they're out of commission and they're out of our area for a longer period of time. And so that's definitely something that we've had to take a look at because it does stress our own systems. The other thing that we've had to do is purchase additional equipment that we haven't had in the past because those patients would have been transferred. And so a patient requiring a ventilator is generally not at Mitchell County for very long. They're generally transferred, but we've had to purchase ventilators during and after the pandemic because finding a bed for a patient can be difficult. And so we've had to, maintain, train staff on caring for those individuals that might need a higher level of acuity. The other thing I would say is, and Gina can attest to this, so as a critical access hospital, we have to keep a length of stay or how long a patient stays to less than 96 hours. But during the pandemic and post-pandemic, we've seen that go up because we've had to hold more acutely ill patients. And so those are some of the changes that we've seen post-pandemic too. Questions for me before I let Gina get to the real stuff that you're interested in?
You mentioned a lot of welcoming people here as far as residents and that thing. And then you also mentioned there's a big shortage in the state as far as staffing.
Yeah.
So have you noticed other staffing problems within your facility? I mean, you welcome a lot of people.
Absolutely.
You still notice that?
Absolutely. So we've been actually really fortunate and very blessed we have not had a lot of travelers where other companies or other facilities throughout Iowa, well, across the nation, have had to hire a lot of travelers, which is leading to more challenges. Obviously, there's supply chain issues and supply chain costs have increased. And then the travel expenses are a lot higher when you're paying traveler nurses. So at the height of the pandemic, I think a travel nurse was making $250 an hour. So, and having said that, what's different about healthcare is, let's say I make widgets for a living. So we make widgets. I sell the widgets for $100 a piece. And when I have to pay staff more because that's what we need to do, or I need increased benefits, then I raise the price of my widget. So now my widget costs $110 rather than $100. Healthcare doesn't work like that. Healthcare, our major payers are Medicare, Medicaid, and obviously commercial payer in our state. So Medicare pays us what Medicare will pay us. And I can't tell you exactly what on the dollar would be, but specifically, but so same thing with Medicaid. Medicaid pays what Medicaid will pay. So in our state, the hospitals haven't received a Medicaid increase since 2013. So just keep that in mind. And so Medicaid, again, is a federal program, but it's also state funded as well. So it's both coming together, whereas Medicare is strictly federal. And then, of course, we have one major payer. I mean, we have more than one payer in the state, commercial payer, but we have one that's a lot bigger than any of the others. And so, which makes our landscape, our reimbursement landscape can be challenging around that. So, but yes, we have seen a lot of travelers, I would say, and I'm sure you saw this in the news a couple of weeks ago, Trinity announced, or Mercy One announced that they were going to be making some cuts. So we'll definitely see those coming to fruition probably over the next 6 months or so, I think. Mason City, I don't remember the exact numbers of employees that will lose their jobs. So we've definitely seen some layoffs. We'll probably see some service line centralization. We'll probably see, there's a new, it's called Rural Emergency Hospital. So you've got critical access hospital, you've got PPS hospitals, And now there's a new federal designation called a rural emergency hospital that has enhanced reimbursement. We'll likely see some REHs come up, and I'll show you, you'll see this when Gina shares some of her slides of our Mercy One network and see where people are, how people are doing financially. But that it's definitely concerning. And so it was passed, actually it started off with Senator Grassley in 2015, and that was, it's called the REACH Act. Didn't get a lot of traction, but it did get passed in 2021. We should have passed the licensure information in 2022, but we didn't get it done, didn't get it across the finish line. So that is in the Iowa legislature right now. So we're hoping that we can get the REH designation. So as a point of reference, that is what Keokuk Hospital was waiting for, that designation to keep that hospital open, because they closed in October of last year. And so they are waiting until that licensure is done and to apply as an REH hospital. So if you're an REH hospital, you do have enhanced reimbursement, but you do not have inpatients. So you can't keep patients over a 24-hour limit. And I just read this morning on the Iowa Hospital Association update that the 24-hour inpatient basically starts at the registration of the triage time, which is really limited. So you have to have that patient transferred out of your facility within that 24-hour time frame. So it's pretty tight. It wouldn't be like if you had an emergency room patient and you kept them in the emergency room for 3 or 4 hours. It started at the beginning when they hit your door. So
and we are not exploring
No.
REACH designation, so we will continue to be a critical access designation. So
what other questions do you have? I can talk all day. So, yeah. You can, I know.
You can talk a while. So I can as well, Shelley. So I'm Gina Goddard. I will mention I've just only been in my role a little over a year. So Greg Burkle was our previous chief financial officer. He actually kind of stepped back out of that particular role, is continuing to support our organization as an executive financial officer. But I took the helm, I think October of 2021. So I was able to wrap up fiscal year 2022 and kick off our current fiscal year as well. But
can I also add that Greg still supports Presco Hospital as well as a executive finance officer.
And he works, I think, 4 days a week at this point.
Yes.
But before I jump into those financials and your financial packet itself too, I just gave you a few pages out of our financial. It's a 70-page document. I have emailed that off to Rachel. She has the full packet, so if you're interested in looking at the entire contents, she can. They've already. Fantastic. And then otherwise, at the very end of that packet actually is some graphs of the Mercy One affiliate hospitals in the state of Iowa, and just some benchmarking slides in regards to where we're at in comparison to those others. I'll get into that here just real shortly, but I did want to also mention, because Shelley didn't, that our board did renew our management services agreement with Mercy One. This relationship continues to be very important to us. One, it allows us to employ Shelley Russell as our chief executive officer, but then also to employ our physicians in our clinics and provide services to our hospital. Additionally, they provide all of our IT and security, IT security for our organization to protect our data. It also allows us to participate in purchasing discounts, contracting with our different payers, and then different networking opportunities for our leadership team. So again, that relationship with Mercy is pretty important. And we would have a hard time functioning without being affiliated with someone. As we do get into the financials here, so I've got a few pages printed off for you. I'm just going to let you know there is a restatement to the fiscal year 2021 financial, only because we did adopt a GASB requirement 87 related to leases. And so the auditors just went back and restated the financials to fiscal year 21 just to have a good comparative purposes with the new adoption of the lease reporting. So I just will say great providers and staff, a stable leadership, and a supportive community who supports Mitchell County Regional Health Center has contributed to another good year for our facility. Jumping into the balance sheet here on page 14, just want to state, we have been running a good operation in that we're hitting an operating margin, and that operating margin is actually allowing us to generate cash for our organization. Our cash is up over last year, over 4.3 million. So we have a strong balance sheet at this point. So I'm happy to report that. You know, unless you guys have specific questions for me, I'm going to move you right along. So jumping over to page 17, which is the statements of revenue and expenses, otherwise known as the income statement. Operating revenues, just want to share. So ultimately, you know, we put in a price increase each year. So for fiscal year 2022, we put in a 3.5% price increase. While we put that in, we know that we're not going to get all that back. Ultimately, you know, we get about 58 cents on the dollar is really what we end up with.
That's the number I was looking for.
Yes, you're welcome. So what we did see though this past year was some real significant growth. One of the items that Shelley didn't mention was actually in September of 2021, we added Dr. Megan Peterson to our family practice. Our clinic visits really exploded and kind of went back to pre-COVID volumes during fiscal year 2022, which was great to see, because what happens is then when our clinic volumes increase, so does a lot of our ancillary services, and those ancillary services include the lab, the imaging, and all of the modalities of imaging, not just the x-ray, the therapy services, so physical therapy, occupational therapy, etc. And then you throw in our expansion with the OR and increasing our total joints, and then increasing our general surgeons procedures. So we ended up actually, if you kind of take into all factors, you know, even beyond that price increase, we were up about 12.5% in our revenues for fiscal year 2022. So we had a great growth year. I'd love to say we're on track for the same for this year, but you know, at some point it kind of levels out here a little bit, but nonetheless, things are still going well for us this year as well. Moving down to operating expenses, you know, so Shelley talked a little bit about some of the changes that we've made to the wages. So I'm really not going to talk much about that, but from a health insurance standpoint, calendar year 2022 actually saw only a 1.8% increase to our health insurance, which is really low, right? We've been very fortunate over the last several years that we've had low rate increases. We actually participate in the Iowa Hospital Association Trust, which lumped us together with other hospitals within the state of Iowa as we get rate quoted for our health insurance. So it just doesn't look at our particular site. So we have fallen into that kind of a low category for utilization. Actually now coming into 2023, we decided we're going to flip the switch. We've always been fully insured through Wellmark, and we just flipped it. We're going to go self-insured now. So, and I think the county, you guys are self-insured, is that right?
We're attempting to partially self-funding.
Okay.
We have ways to go.
Okay.
We're on.
No, so really looking at where we've been, and actually, you know, I mean, we're sitting in a good cash position as well, that we decided this was the year to pull the trigger, and we're going to do it. So we'll let you know how it turns out. How about that? So. I do want to point out, so on this employee benefits line, it looks really crazy. So fiscal year 2022 is at 2 million. Last year's at 3.9 million. I don't know what you guys actually have to see in regards to IPERS, but every year we have an auditor's entry that occurs, and it's a non-cash entry related to the IPERS pension. And ultimately, we have to record the unfunded portion of IPERS every year, okay? So we carry it on our books. We don't actually pay IPERS anything for this unfunded portion. And this has been going on 10, no, it's been more than that, isn't it? 6 or 7 years? Okay. So every year, you know, we've had to book an additional expense as part of the audit. Last year was 662 or 650,000. The year prior to that, maybe it was like 615. I think the highest we ever saw it was like 3/4. Yeah. So it was like 750,000 maybe. Well, what happened after COVID was there was a rebound in the investment market. And IPERS actually, I remember reading my IPERS statement, and IPERS announced they became fully funded. And I sat there and I read that and I wonder what that's going to do to our IPERS entry when we have our audit. And ultimately, so when the auditors came back to us, that IPERS entry actually took a swing. And so whereas again, last year we recorded a $650,000 in extra expense, again, it's a non-cash entry, we recorded a $1.4 million credit to our overall expenses. So that's why you see this reduction in fiscal year 2022. Again, that was a 1.4 credit. I don't even record an employer portion of expense for IPERS of that magnitude for the entire year. So when actually you take my whole line item for IPERS expense for the whole year for fiscal 2022, I have a credit amount sitting on my books because really I end up, the total actual expense for IPERS we recorded was $1,050,000. And this crazy entry, again, it's non-cash. As you look at my balance sheet too, you're going to kind of see that. So if you actually jump back on the balance sheet on the liability side on page 15, there's this net pension liability in 2021 of 8.2 million. It's about midway down. There's another pension-related inflows of 273,000. That's just a little guy, but you'll see that, the combination of those is about 8.4. You'll see then for fiscal 22, that's about 6.5. There's the swing. And then actually, if you flip it back over on the asset side, I actually have a net pension asset. It's listed under other assets on page 14 at 205,000. I mean, it is an anomaly. What's going to be crazy is next year it's probably going to flip, and I'm going to be trying to explain and say, remember I told you about this last year? So again, so it really it really skews my financials. So when you look at on page 17, my operating income of 3.3 million. This non-cash entry of 1.4 million increased. So that entry of the credit of 1.4 million increased my operating margin to that 3.3. It really actually should have been, closer to 1.9. So whereas this is reflecting a 10% operating margin, if you take out that IPERS entry, it's closer to about a 5.84. And actually, if you take into consideration last year and reverse the IPERS entry, it's about a 5.12 operating margin. So very similar from last year to this year. So I just wanted to mention that.
And expect us to remember, right?
No, I'll remind you next year, Todd. So. And then the only other thing would be, non-operating gains. Just the major significance between last year and this year was last year we actually had the Small Business Paycheck Protection Program loan forgiveness of 2.4 million. You can see that on there. And then actually CARES revenue recognition of those funds that we received late 2020 of $4 million. That's why that prior year was 7.4 million, and now I'm back down to about the 1.2 million. Kind of last year was the anomaly in regards to that. So that's all I have to say maybe about the financials here at this point. If you have any questions as you go through the full packet, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. If you flip to your pages, in the last 3 pages, there's some colored slides. And I just, really wanted to share these with you. They're a nice visual that's benchmarking Mitchell County Regional Health Center against the other rural sites affiliated with the Mercy One network. As you can see from a operating margin standpoint, they've got the operating margin. Yeah. Very few sites are actually sitting with a positive operating margin. To the point, it's pretty concerning because actually, if you look at those similar slides from June 30 of 2022, that line where it transitions from the green to the red, was shifted over where it was about a third of the hospitals were all in a positive operating margin, and then maybe 2/3 were in the red. And now, I mean, that has shifted significantly, so.
So this is the kind of the graph I was referencing earlier. So this is why we believe that we will see some hospitals convert to that other status. I'm not a doomsday prepper or anything, but I would say that there's going to be something that's going to need to happen here because we have a lot of hospitals who are operating in the red. And so we'll see what happens over the next year or so.
And then I did provide you the slide 5, and it's just their total margin. You can see how a lot of those facilities, at least, that total margin, which may include, grants or their tax levy dollars, are helping get them to a positive margin, but still you have got a handful that are still not even attaining a total margin on the positive side. So, and then just the last slide. It's actually just a visual to show where our tax levy falls in comparison to the other taxing sites. We're actually proud to be on the low end of the receipt of the tax levy dollars. We appreciate these dollars. They're important to us so we can reinvest them into our facility, whether it's for building projects or for any technology upgrades. So that concludes my portion of the presentation today. Any questions for me?
On your sending patients out, do you ever offer any beds if you have some open ones?
Yeah. So what we do right now is every day, or Monday through Friday, we have what's called an org huddle call. So we have a huddle internally with our leadership at 8:30, and then at 9:05, I get on a call with Mercy and then the other affiliates. And when Mercy doesn't have beds, they'll send patients back that we can take care of, or they'll send them to Algona or the other sites. So that's how we try to help to offset and make sure that patients are getting to the most appropriate level. So when they can't take patients, but we can free up inpatient beds and maybe take a patient from Mason City with congestive heart failure, or a patient with pneumonia, we can take those back here. And so we've definitely seen a lot of that. And that's actually how it worked during the pandemic timeframe as well. So we could, try to free up beds in their ICU and things like that. So yes. So we have to report our census and how many patients we can take on an ongoing basis. The other thing I would say is we've seen in Iowa, I think there's been 11 nursing homes across the state who've closed. And I think that there was a DIA announcement that came out yesterday, and there were 6 more nursing homes that are going to be closing. And so what happens then when nursing homes close is when we have patients who need to get discharged, but they still need care and they can't go home, we end up holding them until we can find appropriate placement for them, because we can't discharge a patient to, not a safe setting for them. So if they need placement and there are no nursing homes for us, so the nursing homes are really important to us. I think the pandemic sort of brought to light that we are all so interdependent on one another that we can't act in our silos, and we need all of these people to make it work. And so, but yes, we definitely have seen that.
And now, if you're done asking questions of them, I always come along as a member of the Board of Trustees. And I've been involved since the affiliation with Mercy, because I was sitting in your seats when we affiliated with Mercy in 1994. And I just want to say that I want to give accolades to a few people here. One, to Greg Burkle, because Greg came on as our CFO, and he's really in large part responsible, along with Diane Condon, who is Patient Financial Services. We have one of the lowest rates of turnaround for reimbursements of any of the hospitals. So, and then Gina has been there, and I'm telling you, she gives us fantastic reports. And we appreciate that. But this, I'm just entering my 11th year now on the Board of Trustees for the hospital, and I would like to report that we have a very engaged board, and they ask a lot of questions, and we want to see that everything is being done right. We are the governing board. We did not give the hospital to Mercy. We are still the governing board. So I did want to report a couple of things that back in 2018, yeah.
Can I just add something to that statement? So we periodically will hear people say things like, well, Mercy, why does Mercy want to do a new building? So under our management services agreement, we actually give money to Mercy. We pay them a fee every year. We get IT services, we get contracting services, we get obviously physicians, but they do not give us any money. We actually pay them. And so that question comes up periodically. Sometimes I'll have someone say, oh, so Mercy's going to give us a bonus. Mercy doesn't give any, I mean, they may give their people bonuses, but we would pay for anything that's given to our employees. And so sometimes I think that's confusing for people. Sorry, just wanted to add that.
The only thing is, though, we do have a professional service agreement with Mercy and all of our doctors. For instance, we have 6 doctors that are being paid for by Mercy. I think it's 6. The only one that we pay for is our surgeon. And the others are all under contract with Mercy. That was the agreement. Way back in 1994, most of our physicians were getting close to retirement. The hospital was in terrible shape financially. So that's how Mercy came on board, and they agreed to furnish 4 family practitioners. That's how it started. And we had a couple of PAs, Jean Lundy, and I can't think of the other one. So they were both under Mercy, but now it's just the physicians. So we do not contract, we contract with Mercy for the physicians. So the physicians are Mercy employees, not our employees. So that, sometimes that gets kind of mistaken in the community. But anyway, I did want to say that back in 2018 and 2019, we were recognized as one of the top 100 critical access hospitals in the nation, 2 years in a row. And the same year, 2019, and Shelley would never ever say this, but Shelley was recognized as one of the top 70 CEOs of critical access hospitals in the nation to know. So we are pretty proud of that. And she also is, she's also on the IHA board and the AHA board, and that is quite a distinction for somebody that's a CEO from a small rural critical access hospital. So I wanted to mention the ambulance agreement because sometimes that comes up, and we are allowed 27 cents per thousand of assessed valuation we can tax for ambulance service. Now, Riceville provides ambulance service to, I think it's 19% of geographically of the county. 7, 8. Well, anyway, we give them that percentage of the tax money is given to Riceville. Now, you might ask, St. Ansgar, we don't give any to them because they are not an ambulance service. They're a first responder. We'd love to be able to, but the code does not allow that. So I just thought I wanted to make that clear. Then I did want to say that by code, I'll tell you what, you've heard a report today and previously, I mean, since Shelley's been here, there's been a report to the Board of Supervisors like I've never heard before. When I was on the board, we had to beg them to come in, and we heard maybe about a 3-minute presentation, and that was it. So I mean, I really have to give credit to that.
They might want to go back to that.
I will tell you that we are going to have to raise money for the Riceville Clinic, and St. Ansgar raised money for their clinic. So I'm going to be the point person to raise, along with Elaine Barreca, who is our public relations person. And I will be looking at that and how we will contact people and so on. We're looking at raising at least $500,000 because the cost of the facility went up at least that much. And before that, so the hospital is still going to be footing the bill for probably $500,000. But Riceville is very important to us also. I do want to say that we have a succession plan, and that's one of the greatest things that we have in our hospital. Before Shelley and Greg, we probably have the longest tenured management team that we've ever had here since we affiliated with Mercy. So you can see, we already have one step, Gina, from Greg to Gina for the CFO. We have another step. We went from Judy Brown to Beth Trees. And we have several people that are interested in the CEO when Shelley retires. So we are well positioned. And in the past, we probably looked at Mercy for maybe 3 years, 4 years for a CEO, and that was it. So, and one other thing I wanted to say is that some years ago, and I wanted to say thank you to Mitchell County, even though you guys weren't on the Board of Supervisors then, but we did come to the Board of Supervisors some years ago, and we asked for some assistance. It's very difficult to really recruit positions. A lot of them have a pretty high student debt. Then otherwise, it's a relocation and so on. So we brought that to the Board of Supervisors because we are also looking at, we're competing with other people for those positions. And other people, other areas are giving some help in relocating and so on. So we came to the Board of Supervisors, I don't remember how many years ago it was, maybe 6, 7, 5, I don't know, 4. But the Board of Supervisors gave $20,000 to each and $10,000 each year for 2 years. And that was given to 2 people. That was given to Dr. Hargens, and it was given to Dr. Brandstetter, who was our surgeon. And I just want to say thank you to Mitchell County, even though you guys weren't here, but it was Mitchell County and the taxpayers, that gave that. And the other thing I want to say is we've never raised the levy since 2000. The year 2000 is 1.12816, I think. So, and we won't raise it as long as I'm on the board, and I'll be on the board for 4 more years. So after that, I don't know what they'll do, but anyway, I'm really proud of that, and I'm proud of all that we have done at our hospital. The culture is great. The number of employees we have,
If you consider all of PRN, 230?
230,
Part-time,
if
probably
you look at
180.
PRN and part-time, full-time. So we probably are one of the largest employers in the county. But anyway, it's been great to serve on that board. And again, thank you to Mitchell County for what they've done in the past for us. And who knows, might come to you again for some, but like Shelley said, it's been great. The rotation, the people that have come here on rotation, and it's a great tool to recruit people, because when they see a lot of people want to be part of everything, emergency room, and these doctors and our PAs and our nurse practitioners, what do we have, 6? And they step up to the plate and they change shifts for people when they have to. And I mean, it's just been an amazing place. So we're very fortunate to have that healthcare facility. And I just want to thank Greg, Shelley, Gina, everybody that works there, and they're all wonderful.
The other thing I was just kind of on the same vein is we met with DMU this past year. We met with the medical school division as well as the health sciences division. And because we host their students, they've asked if we would open up more slots, because the reviews from their medical students has been glowing. And so that is something that we're trying to figure out, how can we host additional people? And they have also asked us to host both occupational therapists and physical therapists. At this point, we can't do that, but it is something they'd like for us to consider, because according to them, they have difficulty finding placement for their students. So it is something that we want to consider. We currently don't have the space, unfortunately, and so that is something that we will be looking at down the road, though, because it's a great source of recruitment for us.
One more thing, the latest doctor we got was a woman physician, and I'll tell you, it's been marvelous. A lot of women in the county went to a women's clinic over at Mason City years ago, and I think personally, as a woman, I like to have a woman physician. And Dr. Peterson, she was a local person. She was Megan Kittleson, and her dad was the manager of Hardee's. and now he has Hardee's over Mason City. And Megan has been just absolutely fantastic. So we're very, very happy to be able to say that we have a woman position also. Thank you so much.
We appreciate what you do, and it's a good resource for our county to have you here, so thank you very much.
We appreciate you guys.
Thank you. I think you have a very well facility.
Budget discussion. So I put that on here, not that we're going to approve the budget today, but I know we've had a lot of departments wondering where we're at with the budget. And sat down with Rachel last week to try to figure out, our goal was to get a 25% carryover balance. And at that time, it was figured out that if we put 300,000 local options into the budget, and we would be able to keep that 99 line item that for our donations, we would be able to keep that intact. We came up with a 24.95% carryover balance in the general fund. And then the word came down from the state that they were deciding to mess with the property tax. Did you have something you wanted to read, Rachel,
Yeah,
about that?
so I'll just read, I had let the other taxing authorities know, city, schools, hospital, extension. So my email, I just said, the Mitchell County Auditor's Office has learned of pending legislation that could have a significant impact on your taxable values for fiscal year 23-24. Senate Study Bill 1056 would retroactively change the assessment limitation order issued back to October and require county auditors to redo the annual taxable valuations used for your upcoming budgets. I do have a link available if you want some more information on it, but it appears to have a strong support. The gist of the legislation is the residential rollback would be reduced from 56.49% to 54.65%. which would mean a reduction in the taxable value of property and your projected TIF district revenues. This would also impact the Tier 1 rollback replacement calculations because that calculation uses the difference between the residential rollback and 90%. This obviously creates timing issues for both the auditor's office and your respective legislative bodies and budget staff. If the bill passes and is signed into law, the Department of Revenue then would have 2 days to issue a new rollback order, and the county auditors would have another 10 days to do the valuations over. And make no mistake, that basically requires auditors to go back to square one in our evaluation process and build it back again. There is nothing in the bill as currently written that extends the budget deadlines for local governments. The auditors are asking for 15 days instead of 10 days. And they're asking for April 15th as a deadline instead of March 31st, but they're going to push for April 30th. And yesterday, I did a lot of working with our software company. Our total net valuation for taxes is going to go down if they do this $11,814,725. So. Yeah.
I don't have anything to go off of that, but I did ask Amy how what they're going to do would affect us as far as a reduction in the amount of money. She couldn't give the number because she doesn't know the levy rate that we're going to have. But she emphasized this is a very rough estimate, and I'm not gonna say the number because I don't want all of a sudden that to be broadcast that it is the number. But from what she showed, we would still have enough in local option sales tax if we had to plug that in to make sure the budgets remain the same. Now, I don't know how
I'll point
affects
out,
you.
I think Amy is a great resource, but she does not have the information for budget like I do.
Okay.
I do have the state valuation. I went through, I completely changed the rollbacks in our system, put it in what it will be, and I have it per tax district. I had started attempting a spreadsheet, but we're super busy that I could only do so much yesterday, which then we can create the urban and the rural and trying to figure out where things are. But I also don't want to put in too much time. We don't know if they're going to do it or not. So
That makes it incredibly, almost impossible to tell departments
what to do.
where you're at.
Do you know where the bill's sitting at right now?
As of yesterday, they were going to discuss it on February 7th, which is next Tuesday, and we might not hear till February 10th. So.
Yeah. That's gonna have a tremendous effect on all taxing values, you know,
Yeah.
schools, hospitals, yeah, everything.
So your extensions that the auditors, that's down there now?
Well, in their original bill, they don't have an extension, but the auditors are pushing for an extension because it's pretty unrealistic. Once you add the Department of Revenue, adding 2 days, you give us 10 days, and we still have to publish the max levy and then the budget. So it's pretty unrealistic. But
So you said it'd be less, it would be 11 million less value?
correct. Taxable valuation, yep.
But would they get a lot of opposition from people in the?
Well, so the auditors in their discussion, they were telling their legislators to push for it just so it goes through and we can get it corrected. Otherwise, if they continue to wait, it's just gonna be worse for us. Not that they agree with it. But they did it in October, they caught it in November, but didn't bring it up to about 2 weeks ago.
Is there a rollback on more than just resident, rollback and everything?
So they changed how they did it, and it's like the first 150,000 is at a certain percentage, and then it's the difference of 90% and that percent, or about that. It's kind of confusing.
But that's for all property or just residential?
It will affect the residential, multi-res, commercial, and industrial.
So everything.
It'll affect both those most, right?
Did you figure that 11 million as far as what our current levy rate is to see?
Yep,
if
so
that
I have
comes
the
to dollar amount?
evaluation, what was approved for evaluations, and then yesterday I went in and took a while, but we switched all the rollbacks. I was able to print the report, and then I went back and put it to how it currently is, and so that's how I got the total number.
No comment. I mean, I don't,
We're kind of gotta wait and see.
we're just locked into what somebody else wants to do to us, basically.
I would hope that every governmental entity was on top of that, down there talking to their, for what it's doing to everybody and giving them no more time than this to do it. I mean, it's ridiculous. This government is local government, you know, and, yeah.
So Sheriff, what do you think? I mean, you need to hire somebody. I get that. You gonna have enough money to do it? I don't know how else to ask the question.
Well, if you approve the 23-24 budget, I will.
Yeah.
If you don't, I won't. But then when the jail inspector comes and I have hours that there's no jailer on staff, or if somebody would injure themselves or worse, in jail and nobody's there to take care of them, county's gonna be on the hook for that. They're gonna look at me and say, why didn't you have staff? I said, because of what you do in Des Moines.
Well,
That's not gonna matter to them.
we will just have to wait to see what they're going to do and then adjust things.
Figure out what our needs and what our wants.
You know, they probably should
People
hire-
don't like to, I'm sorry, but
I think you should still hire somebody.
Yeah, I do too.
Figure something out later.
Right, yeah. I
You
do.
gotta keep the staff.
Yeah, because yours is a need, it ain't a want. There's some
Well,
things that are wanted, but not needed, not necessarily needed, you know?
Right, everything in our community is important, but public safety is probably number one.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what government is here for, to keep people safe. And so I guess I have to have the funding,
Yeah,
you know, at some level.
we'll figure it out, but I don't know how right now, but we'll figure it out.
I would say go ahead and hire it, you know, you need it. That's a need, not a want.
It's too bad they didn't let everybody know for salary increases and all that, you know, I mean, now those have all been approved and, you know, yeah.
Well, they caught it in November, and if they would have fixed it by then, we could have done it for our regular valuations, so it doesn't make sense.
Okay, well, I just wanted to touch base on that, because that's a big deal. Discussion, possible action on health insurance. I put that on there also. It's not that I wanted to approve the plans within the system, but we've had people contact us from other insurance entities wanting to know if they would like the opportunity, if they could have the opportunity to quote their rates to us like what we did before. Does the board want to keep accepting more quotes from other insurance people, or are we happy with the ISAC group that we're currently with? That's where I'm going with that.
I think we're happy with ISAC.
I think we're happy with ISAC too. We got a quote from somebody and he recommended staying with ISAC, so he's pretty honest, you know?
Anybody else?
Yeah, I feel that way too, that with our budget situation right now, I guess we know with ISAC, so.
Sydney? Okay, so we'll just,
Getting somebody in every week with a
well, that's just it.
presentation.
Yeah,
Yeah, we could spend months on this.
so, and I didn't want to say no because it's not just my decision, it's ours, so that's what I brought it up. But so we will tell them we're not interested, and then we'll decide this insurance thing, down the road a little bit. We got some things going on. So, okay. Discussion and possible action on Riceville law enforcement. You're up.
I'm up.
So there's been, and the sheriff will probably talk about this also, but there's been an extension as far as law enforcement. And then we sent you a 30-day termination notice. And then there was a request again to provide services. So I think everybody's just kind of wanting to know, when is this going to start and when is this going to end?
Sure. So as I'm sure you've been following Riceville, last summer, I want to say they determined to look at hiring a town police officer and went through the process of doing that, hired an individual within that spot. Since then, that individual has resigned. Council went back into conversations, had gotten some quotes from Howard County to cover the entire town, which was what the city was doing prior to looking at a town police officer. The council voted in December, at their December meeting, to go forward with the Howard County contract and accept that contract. So January, the city attorney brought the draft of the contract that was going to Howard County. I think that was the day that I became mayor. So the 9th, you guys sent me the letter on the 10th. It's kind of fast and furious these days for me. So working back with Sheriff Beckham in Howard County, they actually are targeting the start of the contract to be March 1st. One, the city attorneys were kind of going back and forth with some edits, which is a normal process. And two, they were really looking to start at the beginning of a month versus mid-month. So that was their other request. So from your guys' information and letter, the contract would actually expire on February 10th. So it creates an issue of gap of coverage from the 10th to March 1st. And obviously from a state requirement, we have to have some coverage there. So I chatted with my city clerk, who also is new, but it does look like the original contract was for a year until July 1st of 2023. However, it looks like we did billing at a 6-month time frame. So that 6 months would have been that January 1st time frame, which is probably why we're having this conversation as well. So we would look at still keeping the same fee structure as the contract sits today, covering then January and February months with the county to cover us till that March 1st timeline. So that's really the request, is to March 1st. And I talked to Sheriff Beckham on Friday and said, just so we're clear, we're not moving this timeline again. And he was confident with March 1st. So I don't see any issues with that. And the request is really for Mitchell County to continue the per capita coverage is what the contract is for until March 1st.
So it'll be from the 10th through the 28th, midnight of the 28th.
Right.
Because midnight of March 1st, they take over.
Yes.
Any
Correct.
comments from the sheriff or the county attorney?
What's gonna be the exact start date again?
March 1st.
That's the end date.
Yeah.
10th is the
February 10th would be,
start of the tentative contract. and then ending would be the midnight of the 28th.
28.
Right,
Is that correct?
yes. However you need to do that. I know the original contract was till July 1st. So the letter that I got is really that you're terminating the contract and you're giving 30 days notice of termination of the contract. But the original contract was until July 1st. So if you have to do a new
You mean July 1st of what, 2023?
yes,
I guess I'd have to look at that. I don't have that paperwork. I guess
I
thought
believe
the
so.
original term of the contract had expired, and that's why it's terminating after 30 days notice.
It looks like we signed it on April 11th of 2022. But I had wrote down July. July was the full year, because it was starting on July 1st of 2022, because that's when our Howard County
That's right.
contract
I don't think it was
stopped.
a year thing. Though.
Okay. So you think it was only a 6-month contract?
Yeah, I'd have to look, but I don't think it was a year, but regardless. So we already got, and to a certain extent, there's gonna have to be some resolution here because the paper, it's gonna get messy to be looking at all this, you know, something, if an outside person were to look at, you know, they're gonna try and figure out what the hell's going on here. You know, is the contract running here, is it running here, is it running here? We already got the contract. We're gonna have to, so if I do this contract, if I draft this up, it's gonna run from the 10th to the 28th. There won't be any 30-day notice provision, because it won't be 30 days. I can draft it up so it works. To just be effective the 10th through the 28th.
Okay. Work for you?
It works for me. I'll continue to provide.
Work for you?
Works for me.
Any questions from the board?
So I'll do this next week then, resolution or draft.
Yeah, I can draft it immediately. I mean, I can.
Something you just need me to sign it today, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I kind of figured once I knew what the deal was, I would try and do that when I went back. And I think I probably have the sheriff sign it and the city sign it and chairman of the board of supervisors sign it. Guess, you know, you just gotta do a motion, resolution, and pass it and
Work for the board?
I'm no attorney, that's what we got you for. But is there any way we can, so we have the 30-day already in process, can we have a continuation from the 10th to the 28th on that same, rather than, or-
I think I understand what you're saying, is we have a continuation of the current contract rather than draft a new contract. And I think so. And I mean, I think intuitively that's kind of probably the way I would draft it. It's just a continuation of the current contract. Because it hasn't actually terminated yet.
just a thought, I mean, and I'm no attorney, so we'll put it in your hands.
No, but and some people would say, you know, 6-1, half does the other, what's it matter? And I might say, I don't know that it matters, but I understand your question. And in fact, when I went back to draft it, that's probably what I would have done. I mean, I hadn't thought of it yet, so maybe it's your idea and that's why I'm doing it, but I think I probably would have structured it that way.
Okay, you guys.
Sure. So in regards to a motion, I'm writing something down. I want to know if this will work. Do you think it'll work? Because we're not. So move to approve Riceville law enforcement from February 10th through February 28th. That suffice for a motion?
I think that's perfectly fine. I don't think there's anything else to say, right?
Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll move to make that motion.
Brian makes a motion. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Mark? Hendrickson seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Roll call, Todd?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Sydney?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meetings attended.
Quick note, we got 5 minutes.
Yep, items of note. Meetings attended. I had a NICOG board meeting. Elected officers. I'm the secretary for the executive committee now. They talked about housing conference, NICOG training room in their NICOG facility. They got 2 grants, one for $166,000 and another one for $104,000 to help funding for houses. That's all I had.
No meetings.
Oh, I had a substance abuse coalition board meeting and we just talked about projects or things we're gonna be doing. Not really no action on anything, just kind of mostly discussion. And I had a Central Iowa Juvenile Detention Center meeting in Eldora and, the first meeting of the year. They're gonna raise the rates for members from 115 to 140 if you're a member. If you're a non-member, it's going from 200 to 250 a day, so. And we know it doesn't cost us to be a member, but just saves us. We're using their services now, so. Anyway, and they just went over their whole budget and everything, but that's the highlights, I guess, for us.
At a county social service meeting, they gave a 5% raise to the employees. The Core had Iowa Workforce in Mason City, they gave all the different programs they got going on with NIAC and Hawkeye Community College, low unemployment. And I gave you guys a piece of paper. A year and a half ago, I went around with our insurance guide, all our buildings that the county has. And this all started with that Dre show that went through southern Iowa and all of our 10 counties that we're in that pool with. Everybody's uninsured for today's rate, so they send a guy around all the buildings and you can see the replacement cost and what we have it valued at and the costs are even going up for under insurance. So when the gal comes around for up our annual insurance policy, we may have to up our premium. But you guys take a look at that if you have any questions. You can see a few of them on the bottom. We never had even listed our insurance plan, but we got them all when we went around that day.
I have a couple questions, like the WAPSI.
Later.
Later? Okay, after.
We got to get going.
Yeah, and I had no meetings.
Okay.
Any good question?
Oh, just the WAPSI Welcome Center, the replacement cost is $374, but it's, the value on schedule is $100,000 more. Why? We're over-insuring it then, ain't we?
Yep.
Why?
That's what they had down years ago.
Well, then, yeah, it's that, and then the other one was, there's another Pittston Area Wildlife Cabin, that one's replacement cost is less than what we got it insured for, so that's over-insured too. So I just noticed that.
Mhm.
Public comments? Hearing none, motion to adjourn the meeting, anybody?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Harper makes the motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Meyer seconds, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.